This is our latest Helderburg Lazare, and when the client called to commission this build, he had 3 requests. He said, "Paul, my first request, I want you to build it as if you were building it for yourself. Every decision, every detail, I want it to your standards." And then he added number 2. He said, "I want something that's never been created before. No repeats, no references. I want something that's never existed until now." And number 3, his final request, which most don't have the courage to ask for, is he said, "Paul, I want your word you'll never recreate it again. I want it to be mine and mine alone." Those were his 3 requests, and I'm gonna give you a review of Lazare. We're gonna go for a drive. I'm gonna tell you all about this build and what makes it so special. So I'm going to tell you about how it drives, how it handles and all that, but before I get into it, let me tell you what the process is to commission a Helderburg. It's a really simple process. It starts with a phone call, and we just have a discussion. I get an understanding of what you're wanting to create, and I explain what is a classic Land Rover, more specifically, what is a Helderburg, why is it so special, what's so different about it, and make sure it's something that's going to fit your lifestyle. After that conversation, that gives me enough information to be able to create a build sheet. On this build sheet, I put together a defender for you, meaning I outline some things like roll cage, no roll cage, panoramic, winch, all the different elements, the type of an engine, and then that gives you a price. You do a 50% deposit, that locks in your build slot so you don't move further down the list. And it also gives you one of the classic Land Rovers that I have in stock that we're going to restore specifically for you. After that, that gives us a time to actually breathe and slow down and work together and pick a unique one-of-a-kind color, design the interior, do all of those things. That's going to take time, and clients often say it's the most exciting process of it all. After we get that all done, the design, the colors, the interior, you sign off on that. And then when your Defender comes in and the build slot actually starts for you, then I start sharing pictures and videos so you see your Helderburg start to come to life. So essentially, the way to commission a Helderburg is a pretty easy process. It's really about a conversation, and you work directly with me one-on-one. And it's enjoyable because I'm going to push you to do something different, or at least encourage you. Now, let's just go for a drive and I'll tell you what it's like. So now we're in Lazare, we're taking it for a drive, and the engine that's in Lazare is a turbo diesel. We offer 3 variants of a turbo diesel. The first one being the 300 TDI with our performance tune. The second version is also a 300 TDI, but we bored it out. It's a 2.8 liter. It's quite a bit more get up and go, a lot of power. You can drive it on the highway, you can hit the highway speeds, you can pass, it can do everything you want it to do. That's what's in Lazare, is the 2.8 liter. It has our performance cylinder head, has our VNT turbo, our exhaust system, and again, the internals are all different in the 2.8 liter that we offer. And then the third variant is our Mark 3.5, which is driven by a computer, and it's crazy fast. And then the other engine variants we offer is the GM V8, but I will tell you that the turbo diesel is my favorite for the nostalgia, for just the amount of miles and the use that you'll get out of it, because one of these turbo diesels, even though it's performance tuned, easily 500 to 800,000 miles without issue. And again, the 28 to 32 mile per gallon is really nice, so I don't have to stop that often. So talking about engines, let me kind of cover the GM V8. And again, we offer that. We offer that for the California market primarily because It just makes life easier, even though you can register and legally own a turbo diesel in California. It just takes an extra step and a little more time. But the GM V8, while it gives that good sound and that power, it does have disadvantages. If you do your homework, you'll find out that the GM V8 engine on a Corvette, for example, has 32 different heat exchangers. And that's because that engine runs so hot. They have to do that to keep it running cool. So if you live in a hot climate, the GM V8 is not an engine you really want to consider. It's more of a cool climate engine for that point. If you just think about the simple dynamics and the engineering of a classic Land Rover, the radiator is very small, meaning the actual opening for the radiator. And you can put fan packs, as we do, as any of the other builders, but it still is a very hot engine. Again, 32 heat exchangers in a Corvette. So it just makes sense that the turbo diesel was engineered for the Land Rover, and it's my recommendation that's what you should stick with. However, whenever you're thinking about commissioning a classic Land Rover with the GM V8, not to be, just to be forthright with that, doing the GM V8 is a much quicker process. It's more cost effective too for the builder, for the simple reason that the engine, the transmission show up in a crate on a pallet. You're basically putting some motor mounts and dropping the engine in. To be able to do the turbo diesel properly, it takes skill. It takes a craftsman that knows what they're doing, because the engine does need to be rebuilt from the crank up. Hence, that's what this is, as every Helderburg, that it's a full build ground up from the crank. So that's the engines. Again, a lot of power with the turbo diesel. And it doesn't, if you're a diesel person, you'll really like this. It does not require diesel exhaust fluid. So you're not held to the limitations of a new diesel. And parts are plentiful. They're easy to work on, but you have no tune-ups, unlike the V8. So transmissions. We offer manual transmission, which we do a lot of work, and I'll explain in a second. But we also offer automatic transmissions too. I will say that the vast majority of all of our clients, even if they've never experienced a manual transmission, they choose the manual transmission for the nostalgia and just the driving experience. What we do to the manual transmission, though, is the clutch is reworked. Everything in it is reworked. So you can shift with 2 fingers. It makes it really easy. It's not hard to drive. In about 5 minutes, you can learn how to drive one. So manual transmission, I just want to show you. I'm gonna come to a complete stop here. I'm gonna put in first gear, and I'm just gonna pull away and show you how easy it is. I'm just pulling away easily, and now I'm off the clutch completely, and it's just cruising. Both feet are off. There's nothing on the accelerator, nothing on the clutch, and it's just pulling away. The reason that I'm showing you this is because years ago, if you tried to learn how to drive a manual transmission, you probably remember all the jerking and how frustrating it was that you just couldn't get the timing right. The Helderburg has a tremendous amount of torque based on the engine, and so does classic Land Rovers. So you just pull away and it's this easy. So think about it in the way of stop and go traffic. If you're doing stop and go driving in the city and everything, I can bring it, I'm just going to step on the brake. Again, I'm not stepping on the clutch, I'm just stepping on the brake and I'm slowing it down. Now the traffic goes, I'm going to give it fuel and we're going to go. And then the traffic slows down, I'm going to let off the accelerator, I'm going to hit the brake, and I'm going to slow it down. I'm not even using the clutch. So manual transmission, beautiful. It's something to be experienced. Driving, speeds. I have a lot of individuals that ask about that. Can you do highway speeds? Well, let's go for a spin. Pretty easy to get up to speed. And yes, you can do the highway speeds. no problem. It's not like your grandfather's Buick with a diesel engine. It goes. Ride comfort, that's another thing. And this is an all-day comfort. Keeping in mind, again, it's a Helderburg. We don't recover the seat frames. We custom build the seat frame specific to your size. And the client, I got his measurements, and this seat frame was built to his size. Center console, done to his size. Thickness of the steering wheel is what he prefers, his preference. And then the pedals are adjusted to someone's height. So if you're really tall, not a problem. We're designing it, we're building it specifically for you. So you can be, our tallest client is 6'9" to give you an idea. So comfort, yeah, all day. Seats are comfortable. You have lumbar support. And you have heated seats too. What else can I tell you about comfort other than you'll want to give up your daily driver and make this your daily driver? Next, let's talk about the brakes. Lazare has the Helderburg Performance brakes, which these are CNC'd. We have a shop of a few gentlemen, and they CNC our brakes, so they are custom made. We have 6 pistons in the front, 4 pistons in the rear. We cross-drilled rotors and slotted rotors is what I really mean. So stopping is really responsive. Stops in a straight line, so if you need to do an emergency stop, it will bring you to a stop. Lazare does have a lift, as does basically all Helderbergs, and you don't have to have a lift, but the things that we do when we lift is what gives it that stance. We're about 4 inches wider than a classic standard Land Rover Defender, and that's where we get the stance. Custom radius arms, custom prop shafts, heavy duty transmission, so the lift is done properly. We're not just putting taller springs and calling it done. Everything is specific to the lift. The shocks are specific to the truck, specific to the weight, so you can see that it's just a nice drive. Steering is all completely reworked. It's our own design that I can steer with 2 fingers, no problem at all. Turning radius, not a problem. Pulling into a parking spot, very easy. And earlier I mentioned cameras. Yes, you do have a backup camera, you have Apple CarPlay, so you have all of the modern conveniences, but you have the coolness factor of driving a classic Land Rover Defender. But on top of that, it is a Helderburg, so you know it is one of a kind, one color that I try to pick a color for a client and not repeat it. I'm not saying that doesn't always happen, but as this client asked a specific color, we won't be repeating this color. So let's recap on that. Steering, precise, accurate. It's not like driving a truck. Brakes, precise, accurate. You stop in a straight line. Power, plenty of it. 5-speed manual transmission. As you've seen, it's easy to shift, or an automatic transmission, and I will do my best to talk you into the manual if you want the automatic, because once you experience it, you'll never want to go back. Heating, air conditioning, heated seats. It does have the panoramic glass roofs, but they do not open. And then you do have the vents under the windscreen that you can open up for that fall day, just to be able to get that fresh air. Like today, it's not overly hot. I have the windows down. I'm just enjoying the breeze. So that's what it drives like, and that's what it feels like. There's one thing I can share with you is slowing down. And what I mean by that is if you slow down and you start savoring every moment, that's where you're going to get creative, and that's where you're going to get your ideas. And that's how I got the idea for this interiors. I was coming back from Italy, and in the airport, they have a Cartier store. So I'm looking at watches, and you know that color that Cartier has on some of their boxes and their bags, and some of the materials they use for the watch. Well, it's got that deep red, that beautiful red. And when I saw that color, I just stopped. I wasn't focused on the watch anymore. I was focused on that color. As I was building Ed's truck, I was in the process of building it, and I knew the exterior color I wanted, which is a takeoff from Ferrari, the old vintage Ferraris. But just knowing if I could pair this burgundy red with the exterior gold is going to bring it together. It's going to create a very regal feel. And that's exactly what we've done here. And it's interesting that I've had visitors to the estate and they've walked around the outside and I'm like, wow, that color is fabulous. But when I open the door, that's where they just stop and they go. Definitely a regal feel inside, but we didn't do our normal diamond stitch. This was a custom stitch that we drew out, and it took quite a while to come up with this design. But if you look at the stitching design and how precise it is, and if you watch the stitch, the pattern, you'll see that the stitches never cross. They never touch. Everything is separated, and to be able to create this down the center insert of the seat is very time consuming, but the payoff, again, it's not only regal, but it's just beautiful. And this will be a timeless design that I'd like to recreate it again, but I'll have to come up with a completely different idea. So let's talk a little more about the interior. Starting with the leather. I didn't do my normal leather. This leather is even thicker, but it has even more of a wax content. So when you touch it, it just feels, it's really something that you have to see in person. But the thickness, but just the smoothness of it, and just after you pull your hands away, you can still feel this sensation in your fingertips. It's a beautiful combo. I kept all the colors the same, so I didn't break it up. I didn't do a two-tone. I felt like that would just be entirely too busy. So I've got all the burgundy, and then of course I have this the metallic gold that breaks it up. I carried it on into the inside. And then, of course, I wanted to do something a little special because, of course, I always do the billet aluminum door handles. But even the gear shift knob too, or the gear shift, the rod itself, I cut the boot back a little farther because I wanted to expose the nickel plating that we did on the shift rod here. And it comes together between the golds and the billet aluminum, the silver, the nickel. It just all matches. And I mean, and it even, of course, I mean, this is nothing special, but it's all about the details. Even the seatbelt with the nickel here, it just pulls everything together. The interior is darker, and then I did the Italian Alcantara suede headliner, of course, but I wanted to brighten the cabin up. So there's a special little treat in here, and that's dual panoramic glass roof. So the whole back is glass. And a question that I get a lot of times is, oh, I live in a hot climate, can we really do the glass? Well, this is a double pane glass, and it has a gas in the center, and it is tinted. So it's not overly bright. Yeah, it's going to be a little warmer in the cabin if you did no glass whatsoever, but it's only going to be slightly warmer just because of all the tinting. But it brings more light in here, and it gives it almost of a, what's the effect I can explain? Kind of like a greenhouse, but you won't get that greenhouse effect. It just heightens your sensation, especially for your passengers that are in the back, because you can just look up, you can see the stars, you can see the sun, but they're not going to really feel the heat when they're riding in the back. So the interior, I'm just going to let you take a look at it, and it's very regal. That's the best way to explain it. So let's talk about audio. We have 3 different options when it comes to audio. We have our base model, which is really not a base model per se, our second tier, and then our third tier. So it's a Utopia and a Grand Utopia. In this one, we went with the mid-range, and the screen, let's just talk about the screen first off. Depending on the angle you're in, it can look maybe really large, and it's not. It's about the height of an iPhone Pro, but width, to give you an idea, is a little over 11 inches, and it fits perfectly. It doesn't look too big, but it does give you a lot of controls. It gives you your backup camera, it gives you some diagnostics about the vehicle, and it's an easy to use unit. I love the Alpine unit just because it's easy to change things out. But here's the thing, you don't really have to change anything, because when we install an audio system in a Helderburg, it's important to note that we don't use crimps. We don't put two wires together and crimp them together. Everything is soldered. So it's a system that will last a lifetime. Connections won't break. You can drive off-road. You can do whatever you want to do. But it is really an heirloom installation of the system. Tweeters in the dash. These are Focal, and they're beryllium. Beryllium is a very rare material to get, but they make for some of the best tweeters, and they sound good. Well, actually, they sound epic. They're great sounding. And then we have mid-ranges down in the lower dash, and then we have additional speakers that are in the seat boxes, and then speakers in the rear, and then of course amplifier under the seat here. Subwoofer custom built under the second row center console. So the stereo has a really full sound. And again, either a Utopia or a Grand Utopia is what I would go with. So every piece of the system has been thought through, because if you've been following me for a while, you know that I am music is important to me, and great sound is important to me. But the Utopia versus the Grand Utopia, that's a conversation that we have to have when we're designing your Helderburg, because there definitely is some differences in the two. And but just the sound and the way it surrounds you is quite magical. And it really does make a difference. I mean, you know, if someone has ever driven a classic Land Rover, they're like, whoa, do we really need to put that type of a sound system? I can't hear it. Well, this is not a classic Land Rover per se, like any other Land Rover you've seen. We've done extensive sound deadening, so you are getting the quality of the sound system. I mean, granted, it does have the aerodynamics of a brick, but we've done everything from thicker glass to sound deadening that it helps you to really immerse yourself in whatever type of audio that you appreciate. So again, 3 different audio systems. Generally, we either go with the Utopia or the Grand Utopia. Other things that we can do when it comes to the interior and being immersed is LED lighting, and then of course we can do the Starliner headliner, which if you've ever seen that in a Rolls Royce, we offer the same thing, which is hundreds of little fibers, LED fibers, that give you a stargazer, and it can do different patterns based on the music. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but it's quite the experience, and it does really elevate the driving experience. So let's talk about the seating configuration and your options on that. So of course I'm in a 110, which is a 4-door 110, or technically a 5-door 110. There's also the 2-door 110, but I'll save that for another video. On seating configuration, you have the option, of course, you have the 2 seats in the front, the driver and the passenger, with the center console. There is the option to do a front bench if you choose to do that, which really depends on the design you're trying to come up with. To do a front bench on this design simply would not flow. It would look like it was an afterthought. In the second row, there's an option here. So you have your first option, 2 seats, where, like the way this one's set up. So I have 2 seats, and then I have a center console. I prefer this option generally, unless you have a large family, because it gives, let's say you have 2 children or even 3 children, it gives more storage space. And that's the one thing. You always want to try to find storage opportunities in a vehicle, regardless of the vehicle. So center console provides that opportunity. Center console also provides the opportunity where we do the custom subwoofer box that we build it under this center console, and it provides a really nice armrest too for your passengers in the rear. Other option is no center console, and we can relocate the subwoofer somewhere else, and then you have a walkthrough. So someone can enter from the second row door here, walk in, walk through, and sit down into the rear cargo area, much like a Denali or something like that. Your other option, being your third option when it comes to seating configuration, is to have 3 bucket seats. So if you have a larger family and you want more space, then you do the 3 bucket seats here, and then anyone getting into the cargo area would get in through the rear door, which is really common, not a big thing. It's easy to do is my point. And then your fourth option is to do a second row bench. So the bench is not as tall, and what it provides is if you're carrying dogs and you want your dogs to be with you, or if you want, I guess you could say, more usable storage space, then the bench could provide that. The bench, the backrest isn't as high, and and what happens is you have a shoulder seat belt here when you do the bench, just like you do in the buckets, and then your center passenger has a lap belt. So there's your options. Option 1 being 2 seats, center console. Option 2, 2 seats, walk-through area. Option 3, 3 bucket seats. Option 4 is a bucket system. So I'm going to forewarn you right now. If you have a 110, and if you're the type that ends up driving, that you have another couple or 2 couples that come over, you're going to be the one that ends up driving, even if you're not the one that normally drives. And I will warn you, this is where the adults are going to be. I've experienced it a number of times. And it's for the simple reason, the nostalgia, that this is where they want to be. They don't want to be in the second row. So I tell you that when you're making the decision between a 110 or a 90, that if you have 4 more passengers, occasionally or often, the 4 more passengers are going to want to be back here just for the coolness factor. The center-facing benches are also the most popular, and the other option is center-facing buckets. But the center-facing buckets, the bottom of the seat comes out really far, comes out to about right here on both sides. So if you have 4 individuals back here, their knees are going to be really close together. There's not a lot of room. So this is the preferred seating style, in my opinion. It just provides the best flexibility too. So if you have a couple, then they can sit, they have knee room face to face, or one can stagger. And then if there's 4, everybody can sit face to face and have a party. So pretty fun. You'll notice it doesn't stick out that far. It's about 4 fingers it sticks out. So this seating style also provides the best opportunity for storage. So if you do a lot of outdoor activities or play golf, this is going to take up the least amount of room. If you have big dogs, again, this takes up the least amount of room. And it does have a strap on it. You can pull this cushion up and then strap this seat up out of the way, and it provides storage space right here on top of the wheel wells too. Or you can leave the cushion in and fold it up. So it does give even more functionality. So center-facing bench would be my vote. That would be the way to go. I will go ahead and mention there is also buckets that are forward-facing that will, they're on a spring mechanism, because again, they're forward-facing buckets, and they kind of fold up out of the way. I would highly advise against those, because those seats are so heavy. They're just really heavy. It's hard to fold them up out of the way. And when you fold it down, you have to be very cautious, because you definitely can smash a finger. I've done it more than once, if not even almost lose a finger, because those seats are so heavy. So again, my preferred recommendation to everyone is always this center-facing bench system, and it provides a lot of space and just keeps the nostalgia going. So if you were to ask me if I would change anything about Lazare now that I've built this one, the answer is no, absolutely not, because it just works together. The color, this gold color, is gold, but it's bronze. And it's not a gold you've ever seen before. This is a very classic color. It's not a Land Rover classic color, but I was inspired by Ferrari's gold that they used many years ago on the GTO. And the gold with the burgundy, the two combos, is just absolutely breathtaking. I mean, this Helderburg will absolutely turn heads, there's without a doubt. It's going to be in Park City, and I know it's going to be very popular. It's going to be an Instagrammable build, there's no doubt about it. Let's talk about the specifics though. Louvers, of course, the louvers are on the bonnet. Love the louvers because this is really a splashback to back in the day with Bugatti and Jaguar, and just the louvers I think are great. They don't serve any purpose other than just looks. Moving down, the German grille, metal grille, that's a staple when it comes to Helderburg. The billet aluminum headlight surrounds, the broken beam headlights, and then of course the Helderburg bumper. And here's something interesting. I'm going to put a link in the description. If you're interested in buying Helderburg parts, we're getting ready to launch that. So sign up, put your interest in, because we're going to start offering our bumpers, and you'll be able to sign up. And then we've got some other things that are coming out too. I'm not going to share that yet, but it's coming really soon. But again, bumpers are available and some other parts will be available really soon. Now back to it. Roll cage. Either you love the look of the roll cage, because the roll cage really does give it that adventure look. But if we don't do the roll cage, for example, Bizek, if you go to helderburg.com and see Bizek, there's something to be said about the cleanness of not having the roll cage. It is a functional roll cage. It's a 6-point roll cage. So what we do is we cut into the wings, cut into the rear. It goes all the way down to the frame. It's bolted into the frame, so it truly is functional. Billet aluminum everywhere. Billet aluminum vents. This is CNC'd, so this is machined out. This is an exclusive to us. The hinges, billet aluminum. Even the spray nozzle that sprays the screen on the, or sprays the water on the windscreen, is billet aluminum. Has a little ball bearing in there that rolls back and forth to make a nice spray pattern, because that was definitely a weakness in a classic Land Rover Defender. As you can see, it's lifted. It's got a semi-wide arch, and if you look at any of the Helderburg builds, I mean, we have that design that you go, oh, that's a Helderburg, it's unmistakable. And I see that a lot on social media, and I think you'll agree just by looking at it. And to describe that look, I think the best way to describe it is it's classic. It has that classic element. We haven't Frankensteined it. We haven't lost that classic design, but it also has a modern flair. And when I'm out and I'm driving around, it's common that I have people come up and go, oh, is that the brand new 2025, 2026, whatever it might be, that people think that this is a classic Land Rover Defender that was built this year, but it's purely the design. So there is definitely a cool factor to say, oh, no, it's not. It's a 1996 or a 97. It's a 25-year-old classic Land Rover Defender. And they always say, wow, you've taken really good care of it. I smile and I'm on my way. But they always say, can I take a picture? So here's one of the options that the client chose for Lazare. On your Helderburg, you can say, yes, I want the multi-camera system. And what the multi-camera system does is it gives you a camera on the front windshield, a camera on the rear glass, and then you can opt to do cameras on either side. What this camera system does is it documents, it records your driving. So if you were to get into an accident, everything would be saved on the SD card, and it would also be saved in the cloud. But it goes a step farther. What it allows you to do is to receive text notifications on your phone if someone approaches your vehicle, because it has a built-in motion detection system. So if someone comes within about 15 feet of your Helderburg, you'll get a notification and it will record everything they've done. The cool part, though, I think, is what happens is where you're recording this video that's a really nice quality video. It gives you footage to save and upload to Instagram, because you will get some pretty fun shots when people are approaching your Helderburg and oohing and aahing and taking pictures and asking questions. So not only do you get the camera option of recording the video, but you also get an audio option too. So that's the multi-camera system for a Helderburg. That's an option you can choose. Now I've got a question for you. Is Lazare the type of Helderburg that you see yourself driving, or would you want to go with a different color? For example, like maybe a white or a black or a silver. Really, I'm just asking you, is gold too bold? Oh, that rhymed. Or can you see yourself with this? And I know that, well, I do know. The client is in love and he can't wait to get it. So let me close out with this. Let me give you something that I'm asked often, a common question that I have a lot of times, and that's about the design process. The question I'm asked is, do you need to come visit me for us to go over the leather and the colors, or can we do it remotely? And the short answer is yes, we can do it remotely. And I will tell you, the vast majority of the clients that I have over the years, we've done it remotely and I never met them. However, I will also say that go to helderburg.com and look for the tab for events, and just come see us at one of the events if we're going to be in the part of the country where you're at. And the design process is really easy. It really starts with a phone call. You're going to work with me one-on-one. We're going to talk about your vision and what you see, and then I'm going to share some wisdom, some ideas, and some things that you really didn't think about. And then after we kind of get an idea, I do a build sheet. I send you the build sheet. It gives you the total price, and then you put a 50% deposit down. When you do the deposit, it locks in your build slot. It gives you one of the Defenders that I have available that we're going to restore for you. And then you follow along in the process where I share pictures and videos as we create your one-of-a-kind Helderburg.